when we were setting up on this, you had this wonderful idea of going through the mental health disorders, some of the more common ones, and we would talk about how Scientology would actually try to deal with those things, or what Scientology's explanations for these things would be, because they really are not down with a chemical imbalance in your brain. They ridicule that whole idea. Scientology generally doesn't consider the brain important, except as a sort of a relay point between the spirit and the body. That's kind of how Hubbard describes what the brain is. The brain is just this thing that exists that is a message router for the spirit.
Yes.
And so the idea that there's a brain disease or a brain malfunction or a brain problem, or there's a genetic issue, or there's something familial that might be affecting this person physically, all of that is sort of thrown out the door. They don't even think about those as possibilities. And so when people come in with symptoms of mental disorders, Scientology has this whole other thought process going on as to what is wrong with this person. And so we thought, it might be good to talk about some of these.
Before we start on them, though, the reason I wanted to talk about this before I hope it's all right I say that I've been wanting to talk about the introspection rundown for a really long time, and get it explained. And I'm really excited that not this video, but the next couple will probably be about that, and we'll dig into them very thoroughly. Yep. But when I was reviewing those references, it says right in there, Hubbard says the last reason for psychiatry has been solved. And so that's why I want to go and let's see, has the last reason for psychiatry really been solved?
Yeah,
you seem to think so.
Not so much, no. But he made bold claims like that, and that is where this is going. We are going to be going. I wanted to lay this. We lay this groundwork first.
This groundwork, yes.
And then we're going to actually go into detail in the next couple of videos about this introspection rundown, which is the thing that killed Lisa McPherson, and others have received it, have done it, and so I thought it'd be great to really break that whole thing down into each of its steps, rather than just the person's crazy and they lock him up in a room. We're gonna break it down very thoroughly. Yeah, so. There's a lot more to it than that. Yeah. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. Now, let's start off with depression. Depression is a common mental disorder. This is on a spectrum from, you can have mild depression all the way through to suicidal ideation. I'll just read here from some things I looked up online on this. Depression refers to a wide range of mental health problems characterized by the absence of a positive effect, a loss of interest and enjoyment in ordinary things and experiences, as well as low mood and a range of associated emotional, cognitive, physical, and behavioral symptoms. Tearfulness, irritability, social withdrawal, an exacerbation of pre-existing pains, and pains secondary to increased muscle tension, lack of libido, fatigue, diminished activity, agitation, marked anxiety, reduced sleep, lowered appetite. There's a whole laundry list of symptomology with this. So, and finally, a loss of interest and enjoyment in everyday life, and feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and deserved punishment are common. So, looking at that list and looking at the symptoms of this and your experience with it as a case supervisor in Scientology and an auditor, how would Scientologists interpret this?
Okay, we have two sides to this that we may need to go through on each of them.
Yep.
One side is somebody newly walking in, and one is somebody well into Scientology, because they get addressed differently.
Okay.
They mean the same thing. Depression, there isn't any specific, this rundown is the depression rundown. There's no such thing.
Right.
But in Scientology, it directly translates into the tone scale manifestation of apathy, which is right above body death. You have depression and suicide thoughts. You have apathy and body death. They're all right in that same range.
So Hubbard basically says depression or apathy is an emotion. It's a spot on a scale that he made, or a spectrum of emotions.
Yes.
And he numbered these. So you have this tone scale, or this emotion scale, with death at the bottom. And death is not thought of as an emotion. Death is a state, obviously, where your body is dead. But when you're dead, you're not feeling any more emotions, right? So that's the bottom of the scale. That's 0.
Yes.
And right up above that, right up above death, is apathy. I think it's like 0.05 or something. So then it goes up the line through grief and fear and anger and boredom, and then you get up to happiness, enthusiasm, and that sort of thing. So down at this lower echelon, at this lower scale here, is apathy. And so immediately we're not thinking in terms of a physical thing, we're thinking emotionally. That's where this person is at.
And so when somebody walking in is in this apathetic state, very quickly, we need to talk a little bit more about suicide at the end of talking about depression, but at the beginning, as long as when you have somebody walk in and suicide thoughts, threats, and attempts are all in the same category, and they're up to the point that I left Scientology in 2004, you were not allowed on any Sea Org properties if you had thoughts, threats, or attempts.
Yeah.
Those go back and forth. Sometimes they allow them, sometimes they don't. It's not a Hubbard policy. It's a management policy, I guess we'll call it. But in the case of somebody walking in having manifestations of apathy, you would just put them straight onto introductory auditing, which are basic, real simple auditing counseling steps to you're attempting to raise the person on the scale, the tone scale, the emotional scale. So if you have a person who's apathetic or depressed, comes into session and starts crying, he has moved up. That's a good sign. Because grief is above apathy.
Grief. Right.
Yes.
Right. So they're moving.
But if they're going down, like, I think I'm going to start killing myself, or not start, but they're going down that route, that he's getting worse. So you do this introductory counseling sessions, and he should be back up into a cheerful state by the end of those processes.
Okay, that's
if you want to get into those, we can get into some ideas of what they are. But
I mean, maybe just give 1 or 2 examples so people kind of get the idea of how this is addressed. We talk about auditing or counseling, and there are thousands of different processes or series of commands or questions that can be asked between an auditor and the pre-clear. They're in a room together alone, doors closed, it's private. Many times it's videoed or recorded in some fashion, but not always. But the point is that they're in a room and they're together and they're private, and it's nominally confidential. Yeah. And the auditor then asks the pre-clear a series of questions, or gives him a series of commands, like touch that wall, touch the floor, look at that wall, look at the ceiling. I mean, there's lots and lots of different ones that can be done.
An example. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've broken a lot of this down in other videos, as linked, below.
Okay.
But for the purpose of this video here, we'll just give a couple examples of how you might direct that this be addressed.
One of them is that you can just do what's called simple rudiments, and they are commands for people who are not familiar with Scientology terminology. So instead of saying, do you have an ARC break, you're going to say, are you upset with anyone? Do you, and then you're going to find, you're going to have him talk about that upset with someone. And then you would go earlier, find an earlier upset that's similar to that one, an earlier upset that's similar to that one, and an earlier upset, until the person brightens up. Yes, you know how to fake it.
Oh, I feel so much better now. Yes.
Yes.
And sometimes they really will. One thing about going earlier similar, and this is routine through almost all of Scientology auditing, that if you recall one incident and you talk about it and it doesn't the dam doesn't break or you don't feel better as a result, you will look for an earlier similar time. And one thing about that is you can go back to, when you were 4 years old and remember something that happened to you, and often that'll trigger emotion and feeling, then like, oh my God, I'd forgotten all about that. Look at how that kind of had an effect on me later in life. I mean, that sort of thing happens all the time in auditing, and tends to be the source of where a person will brighten up and go, oh yeah, wow, I'd forgotten all about that. Huh. Yeah, I guess that did have something to do with what's going on now or something. And they'll connect some dots in their life. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But don't think you're curing somebody's depression doing shit like that.
Right.
But that's the goal for that session. You want the person to brighten up.
Yes, you're trying to do it lightly and get the person to brighten up. So those simple rudiments, you have the upset one. All of them do the same basic procedure where you're asking the question, getting the answer, and then you're going to go earlier, similar until you're woo. The questions are upset. Are you upset about anything? Is there anything you're worried about? Are you withholding anything? Is there anything you're holding back? That is not done as that's not a vigorous question. It's not like they're going to doggedly chase that down. It's a light question at that level till you're ready.
Right, till they're really ready to break out the jackhammers.
And then there's three more.
So you might start with something like that. Yep, what else do you do?
Overt, the next question is there, have you committed an overt? Have you done a harmful act towards someone? Then they ask, has anybody had it evaluated anything for you? And invalidation, have you been invalidated? Those are your 6 simple, they're called simple rudiments, and that's one of the introductory processes that you can do on somebody newly coming in who is depressed.
Okay, good. What would you do with somebody who is a more experienced Scientologist who is now feeling like maybe they've been gone for a while and they come back in, maybe they got halfway up the bridge or something like that, or they had some training or whatever, and so they're a little bit more familiar with what's going on, but they're feeling down and they're experiencing some of these symptoms, tearfulness, irritability, social withdrawal, maybe some pains, they're just not as active and as they used to be. What would you do with somebody like that?
There's a lot of different stuff. I mean, the first attempt, you would look at the folder of the person, which is, the written, all of their case history, basically. You're going to see if you can see anything that's obviously off or out or wasn't done correctly, and you're going to try to fix that. But for the most part, you would just go back in again and check rudiments and see, you do the Scientology versions of those same rudiments. And if that doesn't fix it, if he says, here, I'm still upset, there's still a lot going on, or the auditor notices, hey, this guy's not coming out of this sad effect, then the case supervisor will dig in more to find out. But one of the most common ones believed to cause those kind of things to happen in the middle of auditing is what's called a wrong item. Which is basically, let's do a simple example of that. We can get into what they are, or we can do it with colors. How about if we just do it with colors?
Yeah,
I would like to. What is your favorite color?
Right.
What is your favorite color?
Mine is a dark blue.
I would like to indicate that your favorite color is green.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and now I'm going to keep telling you that your item is green, your item is green, your item is green, your item is green, and that is, in LRH's words, that is going to bring that person down until he can fix it where, hey, dark blue is actually your real correct color.
I knew it all along. I knew it wasn't green. You guys have just been telling me it's green all this time, but I knew it was blue. I feel so much better now. Yes.
Examples of items that are actual items is like who the suppressive person is in your life. You can name your mother, but your mother's not really affecting you at all. And it's actually a childhood friend or something like that. Right. And when they think it's their mother. Or there's no one, because it's all imaginary anyway.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the types of things that they would look into for somebody who's in the middle of it, and yeah.